Good evening, friends. Good evening, good evening. Tonight, I have a book about someone who wrote books. Little People, Big Dreams features Jane Austen, the author of Pride and Prejudice, and others. This one is written by another author, Isabella Sanchez Vergara, and this one's illustrated by Katie Wilson. And I don't think we've had any other Little People, Big Dreams illustrated by her. So the pictures are a little bit different. The Austen family lived in the heart of the English countryside. Every evening there were 8 children seated at the table for dinner. James, George, Edward, Henry, Francis, Charles, Cassandra, and little Jane. At that time, girls were only allowed to do things like singing, sewing, and housework. Jane and her sister Cassandra found being a girl to be a bit of a pain. However, Jane's father ran a school and taught the sons of wealthy men. One day, he asked his daughters to join their classes and learn the same things as the boys. Jane loved to read. She always chose a book instead of her dolls and spent endless hours in her parents' library. Jane and her siblings would often write and perform their own plays. She came up with the best stories and soon realized that she wanted to become a writer. Every night, her 7 brothers and sisters sat around the fireplace. They loved listening to Jane's stories until it was time to go to bed. One evening, Jane was at a ball and met a young man named Tom. As they talked, they fell more and more in love with each other. But Tom's family thought that Jane wasn't good enough for their son, and instead of fighting for what he wanted, he proposed to a rich heiress to please his family. Jane decided to write a similar story to this, but with a much happier ending, and so the novel Pride and Prejudice was born. A daring girl named Lizzie was its heroine. Jane kept on writing about young women who were brave enough to make their own choices and who never gave up. These are some of the characters from her stories: Emma, Anne, Marianne, Catherine, Fanny, Elizabeth. When her first book came out, many people loved it, but Jane decided to keep her name a secret. Jane went on to write 7 novels full of grace and talent. Little did she know that one day she would be considered one of the greatest writers in the world. Little Jane would be happy that the books she once wrote are the ones we are still reading today. And that is the story of Jane Austen. And I wonder if any of you are writers. Have you ever written stories? Maybe you're not even really writing yet or learning how to write or print or on the computer yet. But you can think them up in your head and tell stories through what we call the oral tradition. And then as you get into writing more, you can write them down. Jane Austen, my friends. And if you have dreams and you want, you can even write about those too. Yeah. So, I ask you to kiss your beautiful brain, kiss your loving heart, look in that mirror and tell yourself the truth. Hey, good looking. And thank you very much for being a friend of the Shaler North Hills Library, which is your library. Thank you. Good night.